Hey guys, this is me Avi Dwivedi and you are listening on Extended Reality Developers of India community. Today the show is always as always going to be really exciting because आज हमारे साथ इंडस्ट्री के एक वेटरन है, आज हमारे साथ एक लेजेंड ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं जो साल 2002 से इस इंडस्ट्री में है. ही इज़ बीन पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया गेम्स एज अ बिजनेस हेड. ही इज़ बीन पार्ट ऑफ डिज्नी यूटीवी. सो आई एम really pleased to invite Mr. Hrishi Oberoi on the podcast, and we are going to discuss a lot of things about his journey. So, as I already mentioned, he's been a director of games at Disney, and he's also been a studio head at several point of time. So, I'm going to talk about his recent company as well. He's right now the CEO and founder of Photon Tadpole Studios, where he's providing a proprietary gamification platform to other people and services and his own games. So welcome, Mr. Hrishi Oberoi, and we are really pleased to welcome you. Let's.
Thanks, Avi. Good to be here.
Thank you, sir. And now let's talk about you. So, what was the initial inspiration that have you always determined about that you are going to be there in the gaming industry, or is it a conscious decision or a consequence of actions?
Very interesting question. Actually, at this point in my life, when you start asking these questions, it becomes a very different answer.
Totally.
Because you start thinking back on when you did make that decision, and that was like almost like this decision was probably about more than 20 years ago now.
Yes.
So I mean, I always had an interest in computer graphics. In fact, I remember building my first game when I must have been like 10, 11 years old or something like that. And at that time, everything was pixel art, and everything was. So I understood how those pixel characters got created back then. And then my interest towards computers has always been there. So of course that is what led to a lot of the stuff. But it really kind of became bigger when I decided that I had to go. I wanted to go for my masters and do a master's course. At that time, I had to make the decision on what am I going to do for the master's course, and there it wasn't that much of a conscious decision as it was an opportunity that was presented. So when I was looking at the different courses, I saw this course which was there in George Washington University, which had. So I knew I was going to do computer science, but I didn't know what I was going to do in computer science. And this, I went through the course and I saw, oh, they've got something very cool in computer graphics. And the team was very strong. The faculty was very strong. At that time, Professor James Hahn used to lead the computer graphics department, and he had actually worked with. He had written several papers. He had worked with some of the early like creators of Pixar's BMRT rendering technology and things like that. So a lot of that looked very interesting. At that time, Pixar only had one movie out.
Yeah.
So it was that was like, something groundbreaking. So computer graphics actually was what was the intention to get into this field with. And after I finished that, it was, once you've done computer graphics, there's like only three things that you could do. So I was looking at films and animation technology, and then I was looking at games. And that's how I came about in games. I mean, I had a passion for games even before that, so I know that even if I got into games, it would be okay. So it wasn't that conscious that I knew from the start that I'm only going to go do games. So it was a mix of I know I want to do something in computer graphics, and there's an opportunity there, and I had to have a passion for games.
So how did you get into India Games? So it was one of the earliest studios of India. So what was that journey? How did you came in touch with Mr. Vishal Gondal and everything works? Yeah.
So that time, so I was still in the States and I was looking for a job out there. And at that time in 2002, there was a .com bubble that had just burst. So getting a job in the States was becoming very difficult. And so I had a friend of mine out there who gave me Vishal's contact, and he said, oh, he had done some work with him. Vishal had a .com where he was doing some arcade games and stuff like that. Why don't you get in touch with him? So when I came back to India, then I said, okay, let me get in touch with this guy. So I just wrote him an email and said, okay, this is this guy's introduced me to you, and he's giving me a contact, and this is what I've done. Let's meet. So he said, yeah, okay, let's meet and all. And then I just went, like he said, okay, this is the time, come to our office. At that time, I think that Indiagames has hardly just started the mobile games business. There was I remember the first 10 games that we had built at that time, they had built, and they were not completely launched. They were launched in one or two countries in South Asia. India didn't even have a method to launch the mobile games yet. And so then I gave my interview and I said, listen, my background in computer graphics. I want to do more like hardcore 3D stuff. He said, yeah. We have a 3D team and a console team as well. We hardly did anything in that, but that actually ended up made us build a 3D team for the mobile business. And that's essentially how I met him. And then, we had a conversation. I met a couple of other guys. One or two other guys actually told me to come back for a second interview, prepare some other stuff and come back. But Vishal said, no, you just you start 2 days later. That's it. So that's how we started.
वाओ दैट्स इंटरेस्टिंग सो आपने कहा कि उस समय पब्लिशिंग फिगर आउट ही नहीं हुई थी मतलब राइट नाउ वी हैव दिस पब्लिशिंग चैनल्स वी हैव दिस पब्लिशर्स एंड एवरीथिंग व्हाट वाज दैट era what was before mobile phones or before any actual Steam was there in 2002? I'm not sure. No. So what was that era looked like, and how actually you used to publish, or how actually somebody who's making games used to reach to somebody who want to play game?
Okay, so that's a lot of complicated methods. At that time, an individual couldn't do it. I don't think an individual could do it. Or if an individual did manage to do it, he would have to do everything. And he would have to have the business connection, which was not very common. It was always companies or teams. And what happened is that you had to have a really good game. And then you had to approach a publisher. You couldn't, go on your own.
Yep.
And that was, of course, on the PC console side. So PC console, it's very, very unlikely that you actually ended up as even a small team that you ended up getting published, because you had to have a really, really strong prototype. And that's why in the games we ended up doing mobile games. Mobile games, because it was early on, there were hardly any publishers. So in 2003, we ended up getting the license for Spider-Man. And this is a worldwide license, and that's how we ended up. Yeah, that was very early, right? It was, and we had the license only between the Spider-Man 1 movie and Spider-Man 2 movie. So we had to give it up before Spider-Man 2 movie launched. So we only had a short window span to monetize that. So we had to make a game really, really fast. But that made Indiagames itself become into a publisher. We then went to a lot of other operators, and that time only operators used to sell the games. So most of your viewers, I don't know whether any of them had a feature phone, which all the flip phones you had to flip and open, or so you could actually download games on those as well. But the only way you could download was through the operators' websites. So. So we had a sales team that used to go directly to the operator and set up meetings with them, show them the games, and there was a whole process to launch it. That time the launching cycles were a lot longer than what we have today with Apple and Android and the other stores like that. The internet was also not that easy to access. The speeds were very low. Mobile speeds were extremely slow. So
and what about the game engines of that time? I remember having a conversation with Rajat Odra, and he has said the same thing. They were cost millions of dollars. The game engine were costing, and now it's free. So what was that?
So the freemium model did not exist back then. And freemium meaning all over the internet, right? There was no free concept. Like there was free, but it wasn't free for some of the parts and then pay and subscribe for the rest. It wasn't very prevalent. So as far as game engines are concerned, I mean, there are two parts to it, right? There was the PC and console games and the PC and console mobile game engines, PC and console game engines, which were quite established. And then there was a mobile game engines which did not exist at all.
Yep.
Yeah, because we were just literally just starting out. Like everyone in the world was starting out building games at that time from scratch. So the PC and consoles, they were a handful. We personally on PC and console, we worked on renderware, which was a middleware, and it was built by Criterion. And they're the ones who ended up building that engine and building Burnout on it. And then they stopped licensing that because they started concentrating on Burnout only directly. And then EA bought them over, and also we were working on that way before. So there, and then of course Unreal was there, and in its early forms, the id engine was there in the early forms. And you could only get access to those engines if you had a prototype or you had a really strong pitch. So you go, and they were very expensive. Like what Rajat also said, they were very expensive. So we did some demos for the PC console. I mean, at that time, Vishal still wanted to go after that market, but it didn't really go anywhere. I mean, the amount of work and the team that we needed to get that was way bigger than what we needed to do for mobile. And mobile was working really, really fast. So on the mobile side, mostly at that time when we started off, there were mostly only 2D games. Very later on, the low-level Java APIs, and we did a lot of work on another platform called Brew. There were Brew then eventually ended up supporting OpenGL ES 1.0 and 2.0 onwards. And in fact, the ES standards came only a little bit later on, which was for embedded systems. And that's when our team then started adopting the Java 3D APIs and the Brew 3D APIs, and started building 3D games directly. So we were essentially building our own 3D games engines on that. And first we were just directly building games on it. And then later on we realized, listen, building everything from scratch makes no sense. We need to have some kind of framework, some kind of template. So we started building our own engine, so to speak, on top of that, which was mostly just a series of libraries that helped us.
And this engine was targeting all the mobile phones or some set of mobile phones, so some specific vendors?
No, so just like how we have Android and iOS today, right?
Yeah.
And iOS is only Apple, there's only the iPhone, and Android is all the different vendors. Like that, Brew and Java were the core technologies that were built into all the handsets there. So if we targeted the technologies, the engine was running on Java and on Brew, and some later technologies post that. There were a handful like Symbian and all, which was the basis of some smartphone technologies. Then if we targeted those, then we would manage to target all the handsets.
Yeah.
But the porting was much worse than it is today, because things would break all the time. Memory issues were a real problem. Yeah. So we were
Totally get it. Totally get it. So you have this master's degree in computer graphics, right? So what do you prefer, having a degree in computer science versus self-taught computer graphic engineers and everything? So a lot of people in the industry are self-taught as well, and I remember when I figured out the computer graphics in 2015, I guess, and it just blew my mind. It is so math heavy, and it should be a curriculum in colleges as well. But I think hardly there are colleges which are teaching computer graphics. So what is your opinion? What is the best way to do it, and what are the preferred ways?
So as an employer, right, when I have my own company and I have to employ people, I don't have a preference. If a person comes in saying that, okay, he has knowledge in this, then we test him on the knowledge in that. And if they're good enough, we say, okay, fine, regardless of where you've learned it, you're good and you can apply this, so we will take you, And we've applied that all throughout in our hiring process, right from Indiagames onwards. But personally, I feel it really depends from person to person, right? So when and I'll give you an example of this. Right, I have learned computer graphics. I've gotten a degree, but the amount that I used that degree was much less compared to the other people who ended up working in our team. Um, so I don't know whether you've spoken to one of the other companies that do a lot of this 3D stuff really well, Roosh, Srini, and all the co-founders of Roosh were our colleagues at Indiagames, and me and Srini worked really closely at Indiagames in the 3D team. Um, and Srini was completely self-taught as far as computer graphics was concerned, right? And today he, I would say, is a lot more in depth, and he still uses that. He does. He still is, sort of the CTO and the tech head at Roosh. Whereas I'm like, I don't do any programming anymore. So you can just take it from there. There are people who are self-taught, and then there are people who get degrees, and it really depends on how well you like to learn. How do you like to learn? How you like to understand?
So
I can tell you
you
this.
so you are
I
saying
can tell.
that the industry does not have any judgment on this, that the degree is necessary, right?
I can't say about other people, but we don't. And I think because games is a new industry, it's a young industry. So a lot of leaders in the games industry in India, especially, most of them I don't think have a judgment on whether you have a degree or not.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. And also, there are a lot of resources which we can talk about. Like there is Freya Humler. We also invited her on our podcast. Videep Mishra is there, who's also a mentor of XRDI. Javid X, and I'm trying to connect with him as well. He's the legend of C++ graphic engines. So I'm trying to connect with these people as well. So yeah, again, a burning question of the day. What are your reviews of Fauji? So Vaibhav recently made a very good roast about people
Yeah.
who are not who are reviewing it so early and commenting about that. So what is your opinion on Fauji? Since your opinion is very important, since you have also worked with Vishal Gondal and he also has investment in the game. So what is your opinion?
Yeah, this is one of those really tricky questions, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what should I talk about, and what's Vishal going to think about this? See, I haven't been working for Vishal for over like maybe 6-7 years now.
Yeah.
So I have no skin in the game out here. But there's a couple of things that I learned. There's a lot of stuff that I learned from Vishal, and even when we were at Disney, they had this 10-year sort of felicitation thing, and one of the things that I talked about was standing on the shoulders of the giants. Right? When we grow, we can't grow unless the people who we report to, they help us to grow, right?
Yes.
And I really hope that I managed to do that for a lot of people who worked with me and for me, you know. So I have a lot of respect for Vishal and Samir Bangara, one of my other mentors who tragically passed away last year. But they are the ones who literally brought me from, like a junior employee to where I am today. But having said that, there's a lot of stuff that I learned from them and a lot of stuff I learned from Vishal. And I think one of the things that Vishal is absolutely amazing at is marketing, marketing and visibility.
Yeah.
So he catched on to that whole point of PUBG getting banned, along with what was happening with Chinese apps, along with what was happening with the Chinese border, and essentially rode on that wave when they created 4G, right? I don't know the Encore team very well. I know a couple of people who used to work with me who work with Encore right now, but I don't know the founders that well. But I know Vishal, right? And Vishal, of course, catched on to these 3-4 things that was happening in the market, these trends that was happening, and then he made that work for him, and that is why he ended up with 5 million downloads on the first day,
Yeah.
right? Uh, but as a game developer, I will tell you that if you try to ride on a wave and try to make a game based on that within this time frame, even if he started in April, right? Even if it was like about almost a year while he was building it, it'll be very difficult to reach that level of game that they were looking for, you know. So for riding this wave, the type of game that they made, it was good. But the problem was that they rode on this wave of PUBG ban, and that's why people expected something completely different.
Yep.
Personally, I feel that the game is not a good game. Just personally, as the quality of the game itself, and I'm saying this with the perspective of saying that okay, even if it's a if it was a premium game, uh, there are a lot of games that we've made in the past, um, which has had a lot of depth of content. You know, a lot of different types of guns, there's a lot of different types of levels, and we made these games on feature phones in 3D.
Wow.
The quality of graphics, of course, would not be the same as today because of the processing power and GPUs. But the quality of gameplay I know is much higher than what we have out here. Even in the past, we like at Indiagames we had the license of Bruce Lee, and we did a fighting game. And the amount of and we did 2-3 different types of. We did a 2D fighting game, we did a 3D fighting game, and the 3D fighting game we did across multiple tech platforms. And the amount of moves and blocks and strategy that you could use in that game was a lot more than what is there in 4G today. So I feel that like from a gameplay perspective, the rush was, the focus was on to ride the wave, and because of that, a lot of design has been missed out. And in today's day and age, with free-to-play games, I don't think you can afford to do something like that. It's dangerous, and that's why you're seeing all this review bombing of 1 stars and stuff like that.
And also, I think right now nobody's taking in-depth reviews. So everybody has to shout first before the other one. Otherwise, they won't be heard. So they are, reviewing too fast without noticing a lot of details and everything, and comparing too quick. I think if we compare the first version of the game versus the PUBG first version, I think it did a good job there. And definitely, you are pretty damn good about the marketing. So the marketing, it is a huge success on marketing. So 5 million copies on the first day is it's a big huge deal. So yeah, I think totally agree with your point.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, I'll say on the game design, right? I was thinking about this, and I was just thinking, I was thinking maybe I want to at least do an analysis for myself and write an article on analyzing where the game is on the game design. But personally, even as a first release, personally, I would not launch this as a first release because I just don't think there's enough. And if I do launch it with what we have, I won't launch it as a big launch. I'll launch it more as a soft launch. But then I'm not the marketing expert. Vishal is. So, so, who's to say whether I'm right or he's right?
Also, I named this conversation like unexplored perspective of a game industry. So I want you to explain from your perspective, from your end, that what effort it takes to build a game. So a lot of people are complaining, a lot of young mates are complaining about quality of games from India. Though I hosted Avichal as well past week, who's the creator of Raji, but people are complaining about the Indian gaming industry and what we are doing, and we cannot build a good game. इससे अच्छा तो मैं बना देता, मैं GTA बनाएगा. ये सारी चीजें चल रही हैं इस समय. So what is your opinion, or what is the perspective you want to offer to these young people?
That's a difficult one. It's been happening. I've been seeing it for quite some time, and so it's a very difficult one to answer. And I'll tell you why. Right, earlier I was in the same boat as what Vaibhav and all these other guys are saying, that listen, you guys don't know what the quality, like what it takes to get a good quality of a game, right?
Yeah.
And not just for the people who are just coming and giving comments. ऐसे कुछ भी बोल दिया, उनका क्या जा रहा है, right? Comments में कुछ भी लिख लो. How does it make a difference? But they are players, they're the users.
Yep.
They don't have a skin in the game. Then the other problem comes also when they're young developers also who come out and say, oh, look at these guys, they don't know anything. very frankly, I used to be like that. When I joined Indiagames, I was the same way. I was like, look at these guys, they don't know anything. I'll show you what it takes to do. And I also didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So the thing is that, the things that you know, and the things that you don't know, and the things that you don't know, right? And as a young developer, a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And that's
Yes,
the problem.
totally.
There's a lot of things that we see, and I tell people, right, especially young kids who want to get into the industry, and especially when they come and say, "Oh, I've played all these games. This is what I played. This is what I played. This is what I played, and I have a passion." You know, and everyone is like, "You need a passion. Follow your passion for games, etc." And I say, "Okay, hold on a second. How much have you made a game? Today, you can all the tools are available for a person sitting at home to make whatever game they want,
Yeah.
right? One person can sit and make whatever the game they want, right? And even if you don't make a game from scratch, you take all these games which have game creators themselves, right? Or level creators, like, let's say take a game like Mario Maker, for example. You create your own levels in Mario Maker. You create, like, a game in Roblox. So you create something in Minecraft. Create, right? My question is, when you're saying passion, do you have a passion to play games, or do you have a passion to make games? Because playing games and making games is completely different.
Completely different. Yes.
Completely different. So if you don't have a passion to create, then I'm not interested in hearing about your passion to play.
Your opinion about how the game should be made if you're not making your own.
So that is a different thing. If you're not making your own and you're not interested in making your own, then you're a YouTube internet commenter.
Yeah.
Okay? Nothing stopping you, because we also have our own opinions about things we're not involved in. Everyone has. And the problem is, today the internet allows you to express that opinion.
Yeah.
Whether it's valid or not, it doesn't matter. But so that's fine. It's very frankly, it's our responsibility to to separate what is valid and what is not valid. But here's the problem, right? If those users is your audience, then their comments are very valid, regardless of whether they have any knowledge or not. They don't care, and I'll tell you why it matters. Because they're the ones who are going to be playing your game, and they have 100 other options, including PUBG and Free Fire and Fortnite and whatever else. So if they have that option and they're your user, or they're your potential user, then they have an absolutely valid opinion on saying that ye bakwas hai, I'm going to 1 star. Because they're your audience. You have to satisfy your audience regardless of where you're making the game, whether it's an Indian team or not. All that doesn't matter. Right?
So you're saying here, customers are the ultimate judge, critics are not, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If the customers are going to give you 1 star and the critics are going to give you 5 stars,
It doesn't matter.
I mean, well, it doesn't matter if you want to make money.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you want to make money, then it is going to matter, because then there's, like, you need your customers to give you 5 star and the critics to give you 1 star. I mean, look at all Salman Khan movies, right? The critics don't care about them, but the customers want them.
Yes. Okay, so now also esports are growing pretty well in India. So there are so many tournaments being happening, and people are getting interested in that, getting inspired in that, and everybody want to play the ultimate game and live lives of you can say the heroes of esport gaming. So there are a lot. So what is your interest in that? Are you looking at that industry as well?
I don't have a personal interest in it as such. I do have opinions on it. I am sort of following it. Um, I think it's very interesting that it's growing a lot. I've never played it competitive esports. I have followed it a little bit, but again, quite some time back.
Yeah.
Way before the latest esports and all. We used to, even at Indiagames, we used to run WCG. in India, and we did it for a few years. And I also personally ran one tournament myself. Um, and so I'm seeing what the passion is. At that time, it was all hobby. It was all hobby. Now it's not a hobby anymore, which is huge. The fact that it's with streaming channels, with like the popularity of the games going live and on television and things like that, and the viewership, which is at times like larger than the viewership of sports events and things like that. There's a real business opportunity, and when there's business opportunity, there's the the ability for the whole industry to grow as well. So I think
Yeah.
it's very interesting. I think that it will do well. It's still early days, I think, but I mean it's picking up. It looks like it's going to do quite well.
Yeah, totally agree. In India, obviously, the YouTube is the first platform which gave them the hype, and then gaming industry picked up. So totally understand. Yeah. Also, let's talk about your games. And you also mentioned on the first page of your website that you are gamification. So let's talk about what is this gamification, how this gamification works, and what are the advantages of gamification, because this is a very interesting topic.
Okay. So there's the lecture that I give to investors and other people in the business, and then there's something that I give from, okay, why has this come from like personal passion, right? I'll tell you right from the beginning, right? I mean, whenever I've created games, I've always thought from a creator's perspective, and what I mean by that, I thought from a creator's perspective means I'm just thinking that, okay, I am a creator. Now, if another creator has to take my game and build something else out of it, how would they do that, right? So let me build the game in a way where it's extendable. Even when we made Spider-Man, I remember the first thing I tried to make, even though we had like 1 month to build the whole game, I said, okay, I'm going to spend 2 weeks to build a level editor. We needed to have about 6 levels in the game. Yeah. But I said, okay, instead of building one level at a time and just building all 6 levels out, I said, I'm going to spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks to build a level editor. And then I'll be able to make 6 levels very easily. Yeah. So that's the thought of thinking like a
engineer, I can say. Yeah.
Right. And like an engineer, right?
Yeah.
And that's also what gave rise to our in-house 3D engine and at Indiagames, right? ICE 3D that we called it, which ran across builds right up to iOS and Android. We had cricket games running on that way before Unity even existed, right? So in the same context, when I started the company, I said, okay, I want to build games for the new business, which is the freemium business, right? And there are a lot of things, all these games on Android and iOS, they're all free to play. And there are a lot of things which are very, very similar in all of these games. So that is what we wanted to build as far as the platform is concerned. Things like, store elements, things like daily challenge and daily rewards and currency systems and, things that are very, very common in resource-based games. We said, okay, let's make a high-level engine on top of that. And on that, any game can be put on it, whether it's a casual, match 3 kind of game, or it's a battle royale FPS shooter. In the end, they're all resources that are being managed, right? So when we're talking about gamification, all of these systems come together regardless of what type of game it is, and they help the game to have users play for not just like a few days, but for weeks and months and years also.
So you are saying
play for years,
So you are saying that game का कुछ part जो होता है जो developer बनाने में बहुत ज़्यादा interested होते हैं, which is the core gameplay, and there is also the mechanism of the gameplay, which is like store collectibles and everything, जिसके लिए आपने ये engine बनाया है, which basically helps other game developers to port and merge this facility in their games. It's amazing.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Yeah. The thing is, that was what the idea is, and we're still work in progress there. We haven't reached a place where we can start working with other developers yet. But fundamentally, that's the idea.
Yep. So Venkatesh Muskam ने एक क्वेश्चन पूछा है यहाँ पे कि he is asking that if somebody is starting a studio now, what should be the stage and how they can succeed with the industry.
Like, listen, a lot of these depend on a lot of personal situation for everyone. Right?
Totally.
So, and also interest in what type of studio, what they want to do. If you have a very small studio, the fundamental way and where your budget is tight and you're going to do most of the work with maybe 1 or 2 employees or with your friends or your brothers or whatever, and you know that you're going to have to, depend on income to continue to become better, then the first way is to essentially make sure that you get projects where you can do services for other people, right? Don't try to just do games and expect the games to do well, because if you just do a game and put it out in the market right now as a first thing, you should do it, but understand that you are not going to make any money out of it. They are doing it as a portfolio piece. Right? A lot of that goes out there, and other people sort of see that, okay, you can do this, and then they can give you work accordingly. If you do have funding, if you can go and get funding, and then you have an idea which you think can do well, by all means, go out and get that funding and build that idea. But also understand that there's already an established set of publishers, and worldwide, especially if you want to make a game that is going to be published worldwide or even in India, go to the Indian publishers, go to the international publishers and see that, okay, tell them that I have this game, I have this idea, will you buy it or will you publish it for me? Because the amount of money that goes into publishing a game is 5 times, sitting out of India and with Indian development teams, is 5 times the amount of cost that you're going to use in building that game. So if you want to do it yourself, it becomes very, very difficult.
So I have one more question, which is very, very important and very, very unique in some ways. So what do you think about Indian gaming industry, Indian gaming, say publications or something, in Indian distribution channels versus the West? So वहाँ पे the kind of games are popularizing are very different from what we are seeing here. Here we are seeing a lot of real money gaming, a lot of IP based gaming, like movie based gaming and everything. So what is your stand on this, and how do you see this? What kind of audience India has? For games.
This is like 5-6 questions together, so I will try to answer it as best as I can.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
So here's the thing, right? Yes, the Indian gaming industry has come a long way, right?
Yeah.
It's become a much better. A lot of companies can make much better games than we used to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And the audience also has come a long way, right? The Indian audience is very interesting because in one side, you have an audience which wants very local content, right? If you look at movies, television, sports, everything, the Indian audience wants things that are popular in India first, right? And even YouTube channels and all, if you see, a lot of Indian YouTube channels do better in India than international YouTube channels.
Totally.
And on the other side, with content like games, it's very international, So there, the audience, they want just good games, right? So some content which is Indian context content, only if it's done really well and the gameplay is really good, it will do well, right? But otherwise, it doesn't matter to them. And that is why before the PUBG ban, PUBG was so popular. Free Fire is also still so popular. A lot of the games that are on the top, which come and go, a lot of hyper casual games and all, they come and go, and those are all international games. So it doesn't matter, right? Now, there are a handful of companies in India which are trying to do local content. And they can possibly take some, and 4G is like an example, right? So you have
Yeah.
games like Ludo King, you have 4G, you have all the Teen Patti games and things like that, which still do well because they appeal to a mass audience, right? And they do really, really well. But primarily out of the whole, top 100 charts, I think about 80-90% are still international games that do well. And the Indian games, the Indian content games, they're only 10% of that audience. And I think that's a combination of the fact that, okay, the content is not there. So a lot of Indian developers are not creating Indian games. And also, the quality of those games are not on par with the international audience, right? So there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot more work that is there for developers to essentially do to catch up to that need of the audience right now.
Yeah, so indie studios and everything had to need a lot catch up. Totally agree.
So here's the thing. So indie is very different, right? So indie, I think, it has its own market, which is completely different from when we are
Yeah,
looking
big
at
studios
Poly
versus
and
indies are very different. Yes, yes.
yeah. Indie will find the audience.
We'll find.
Then
Okay.
you look at Ogre Head and you look at Nodding Head and Playbay and all these guys who are doing their things. They will find the audience. That's not a problem.
Totally. So also let's talk about from your experience with the gaming industry. You saw Android gaming, you saw even before that, before smartphone gaming. Okay, you also are into a lot of PC games. You saw the numbers. So based on that experience, how do you see the immersive gaming, where the Steam VR is coming up with their store? It's already there. The Oculus store is there, and Geo is also coming up with headset and store. So that are going to be the next distribution channels and immersive media. So how do you see this? What is the potential reach, or what is the potential of this upcoming technology from your perspective?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think whatever Facebook does, because they're putting so much money into it, I think there's a possibility that it could reach a large enough audience. In my opinion, I don't think it will become as mainstream as mobile gaming in India. But worldwide, I think, and worldwide as well, because what's happened with mobile gaming is that because mobiles are in the pockets of everyone in the world, regardless of if it's a young kid to a older person, everyone has a mobile in their pocket. So reaching them becomes much easier with mobile
Much
gaming,
easier.
right?
Totally.
And on the flip side, when you look at consoles and PC gaming, then there's a smaller audience, but there's a much more dedicated audience there, right? So here, what's happening is that I think, first of all the platforms, right, all the VR platforms, and I think what Facebook is doing with Quest and Quest 2 and stuff like that, I think if they manage to propagate in such a way that they can reach at least a large enough audience like what consoles have, then it could become much bigger. Now, specifically in India, when you look at it from a consumer perspective, even consoles in India, when you look at even the numbers for PS4 sales in India and now the projected numbers for PS5 sales in India, they are in the thousands to hundreds of thousands, right? There may be like one or two consoles that have even sold more than 1 million consoles in India. Just think about that, right? We are talking about a country with 1.4 billion people,
Yeah.
right?
And
Even if I
100,000
have
is not even a number. in perspective.
100,000 is 0.01, less than 0.01%.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you sell 1.4 million consoles, and if I'm not mistaken, the PS2 is the only console in India that has sold about more than that.
More than that, yeah.
Yeah, then you're looking at 0.1% adoption. So it's actually, even though 1.4 million sounds like a lot, it's not really a lot as far as India is concerned. And even countries that are much smaller have sold a lot more consoles than that. So without going too much into detail of that, I think if the VR headsets can get to those numbers, then maybe you have a little bit of a opportunity out there. Um, but having said that, the opportunity becomes very niche and becomes not limited to the gaming space, you know. And if you want to do that kind of content, then you have to understand that it's only for that audience. It's not going to be mass audience, right? Sometimes we get lost and we say, okay, this is the thing that I consume. So I think everyone in the world or everyone in India
Should
is doing
consume,
exactly
yeah.
what I'm doing.
Yeah.
लेकिन ऐसे नहीं होता. Um, so because of that, I think if you know that this is what your audience is going to be, and you're prepared to take the step of building that, then I think then there's some like quality games that can come out for that audience, and you have your expectations such in that way. The
Amazing.
stores, of course, will be there and will always propagate those that content.
Definitely, it's a profound insight about this industry as well. And yeah, finally, a message to people. All these were messages to people who are into several other. But what is the unified message which you want to convey from your experiences to the people who are new to the industry or learning or want to be the part of the industry?
So the two things, I think one of the points I already touched about. I think that the 2 points which I generally want to leave people who are getting into the industry or just come into the industry or want to get into the industry. One is passion for playing games is
Yeah.
not the same as passion for creating games, right? So I've already mentioned that there are people, that if that that itch is there, you khujli jo hai to create, to just make something, right? If as a kid you just had things around you and you used to put things together and make something, you're going to be a born engineer, and you have as much joy of creating something new and showing it to people, or just creating something as you have of playing it, then you are on the path to becoming a game developer.
Yeah.
And
It's just a very
then,
different skill.
absolutely, right? And then the second is, I want to say that, and this is something that I ended up learning much later in my life, and it was very unfortunate, which is only once I started working that I realized that everything in this world, in the type of world that we live in, is part of a business. You know, so
Surely.
all the decisions that end up being made end up first being made from a business perspective first, right? Can this make money, right? And you know, it sounds very negative, but it's not. I'm not trying to say that, uh, you'll become a sellout if you go after business first and all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that understand that uh, that this is a business first. So think about the fundamentals of business. Fundamentals of business is very straightforward. It's that, do people want your what you are building, and are people willing to pay for it? Don't think that I like it, so everyone else will like it. Understand that there are hundreds of thousands of millions of people in the world who are very different from you, and there
Yes.
may be hundreds of thousands of people who are very similar to you, right? You have to find out how many of those people are similar to you and want the same things that you want and like the same thing that you like and like what you are building, and therefore can you make a business out of it? So don't don't forget that unfortunately the whole world, regardless of what you're getting into, whenever you're making a company or working for a company, the business decisions are the ones that will end up first. No one is going to build something that is not going to sell just because it's a nice thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's going to take like $100 million to build one thing, but you're only going to make $10 million, then it's not going to be built.
Yeah.
It
So
has to be.
this second tip is almost directed towards me as well, because creators क्या होते हैं हमेशा ये सोचते हैं can we create this and is it useful, but we don't actually can see the business side right away. We figure out it much later. So
Yeah.
तब तक already देर हो चुका होता है, and sometimes we have to quit our ideas या something negotiation करने पड़ते हैं उसके साथ. So I totally agree with your point, and it's so profound knowledge which you shared with us today, and I'm really grateful that you shared with us your time, and
Yes.
we are really honored to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Avi. It's great to be on this show. It's a very good job that you're doing, and I really like the podcast that you have so many good guests on it. And I'm actually very privileged